It was all a transaction to him. 5 years of my life, my savings, my heart, all just business expenses on his road to success. I watched him from across the crowded ballroom, champagne glass in his hand, throwing his head back in laughter among his new circle of executives. The same laugh I used to hear at our kitchen table when we dream about this exact moment. Except in those dreams, I was standing next to him, not hiding behind a column, dressed in clothes I could barely afford just to get past security. Hey everyone, hope you're doing well today wherever you're watching from. Whether you're curled up with a hot drink on a rainy day or catching this during your commute, I appreciate you being here. The story I'm about to share might hit close to home for some of you. My name is Deanna Vaughn, and this is the story of how I went from being the woman who built a millionaire to becoming the one who brought his empire crashing down. 3 hours from now, I would be walking out of this very ballroom with everything I needed to reclaim what was rightfully mine, not just my dignity, but the future he stole. If you find yourself nodding along or feeling that knot in your stomach, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. But let me start from the beginning. I was 24 when I met Liam Hargrove. I just landed my first real job at a marketing firm after graduating with honors. I was naive, hopeful, and completely unprepared for how quickly someone could rewrite my priorities. Liam wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. He worked in the IT department of our company, but what struck me wasn't his current job, it was how he talked about the future. While everyone else complained about management or counted down to Friday, Liam sketched revolutionary app designs on napkins and talked about changing how people connect with technology. The difference between dreamers and achievers, he told me on our third date, is that achievers find someone who believes in them when the evidence doesn't exist yet. I believed in love that builds you up. I believed partnerships meant supporting each other's dreams equally. I believed sacrifice would be reciprocated. I believed loyalty mattered more than status. I was wrong about all of it. The first time I should have seen through him was 6 months in, when he lost his job. Not because of downsizing, which is what he told everyone, but because he'd been spending company time developing his own projects. I found the termination letter in his backpack while looking for a pen. When I confronted him, he broke down. "This is exactly why I hid it," he said, eyes red. "Everyone else sees failure. You're the only one who understands I'm just ahead of my time." That night, I transferred $3,000 from my emergency fund to cover his rent. "It's an investment in us," I said. If only I'd understood the terms of that investment. Within weeks, our relationship transformed. I became his safety net, his secretary, his motivational coach, and his financial advisor, all while working overtime to keep us both afloat. My promotion went toward his prototype development. My weekends disappeared into networking events where I'd introduce him to potential investors. My apartment became his office, with whiteboards covering every wall and my dining table buried under electronics. "When this takes off," he promised, "everything changes. For both of us." I didn't realize then that "everything changes" was the one promise he actually meant to keep. The deadline that started our countdown happened 3 years in. Liam had 7 days to submit his final project to Tech Forward, the biggest innovation incubator on the West Coast. If selected, he'd get mentorship, funding, and connections that would change everything. What he didn't tell me was that he'd already failed their initial screening twice. His application had been rejected, deemed promising but underdeveloped. This was his last chance. They were only considering him again because I'd spent months emailing their talent acquisition team, sending updated prototypes I'd helped refine, and practically begging for another review. The night before submission, nothing was working. His code kept crashing, the interface was glitchy, and Liam was spiraling. "It's over," he said, pushing away from the desk. All of it, wasted time. I called in sick to work the next day. For 19 straight hours, I sat beside him, debugging line by line, rewriting sections while he slept for brief stretches, ordering food delivery when he forgot to eat. By 4 a.m., we had something that worked, not perfectly, but enough to demonstrate the concept. "You're the reason this exists," he said, kissing my forehead as he hit submit. 2 weeks later, the email came. He was in, one of 12 selected from thousands. The morning Tech Forward announced their new cohort. I woke up to breakfast in bed and Liam holding a small velvet box. It wasn't a ring. "I can't afford the engagement ring you deserve yet," he explained, opening it to reveal a simple silver pendant. "But I wanted you to have something to remind you that everything I become is because of you." I wore that pendant every day for the next year, right up until the day I realized it was as hollow as his promises. What I didn't know then was that Liam had already started laying the groundwork for his exit strategy. The moment those tech-forward doors opened, I began my transformation from partner to liability in his eyes. I was the reminder of his struggling past, the debt he never intended to repay, the witness to who he was before the polish and prestige. I just hadn't received that memo yet. The tech-forward program changed everything. Suddenly, Liam had access to mentors, investors, and resources I could never provide. I was happy for him, genuinely thrilled, but I also noticed subtle shifts in his behavior almost immediately. 3 weeks into the program, Liam moved out of my apartment. "It's just practical," he explained, packing his clothes into suitcases I'd bought him. "The commute is killing me, and they're offering subsidized housing near campus." It made sense. The incubator campus was an hour from my place, and he was working 16-hour days. Still, our apartment felt emptier than it should have. It wasn't just his physical absence, it was how quickly he adapted to being gone. Before Tech Forward, we texted constantly throughout the day. Now, I'd go days without hearing from him unless I reached out first. His responses became shorter, less personal, more distracted. Just slammed with work. "Will call when I can. In meetings all day. Talk tomorrow. Can't talk. Coding breakthrough." I told myself this was temporary, the necessary sacrifice for our future. Every successful relationship requires periods of imbalance, right? His time in the spotlight would come first, then mine. Partnership isn't always 50-50 every day, but it balances out over time. That's what I believed. My best friend Carmen saw it differently. "Have you noticed his social media lately?" she asked over coffee one Sunday. It had been 3 weeks since I'd seen Liam in person. "I've been trying not to obsess over it," I admitted. "That's healthy, but maybe take a look," she said, sliding her phone across the table. Liam's Instagram, once filled with photos of us and his tech projects, had transformed. Now it showcased networking events, celebrity tech founders, and group photos with his cohort. I appeared nowhere. Not in photos, not in captions, not even in the vague, grateful for support, acknowledgements. More jarring were the comments. Women I'd never heard of leaving flirty remarks, and Liam responding with the same playful tone he once reserved for me. "It's networking," I said, pushing the phone back to Carmen. "This is how the tech world works." "Is it?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "Because it looks like he's creating a new narrative where you don't exist." I defended him fiercely that day. Called Carmen jealous, unsupportive. Said she didn't understand the pressure he was under. We didn't speak for 2 weeks after that argument, the longest we'd gone without talking since college. Looking back, should have listened to her. Carmen wasn't seeing things through the filter of love and sacrifice that clouded my judgment. She was seeing exactly what was happening. I was being erased. 4 months into the program, Liam called with exciting news. His app concept had caught the attention of Vincent Blackmore, a major tech investor known for turning startups into unicorns. "He wants to meet one-on-one," Liam said, voice electrified. "This could be it, Deanna. Everything we've worked for." My heart swelled at that, we. It was the first time in months he'd acknowledged our shared journey. "That's amazing," I said. "When do we meet him?" The pause lasted a second too long. "Actually, it's more of a casual thing. Drinks at his country club. Very exclusive, members only. They're strict about guests." "Oh," I said, trying to mask my disappointment. "Well, you'll be amazing. Just be yourself, that's what got you this far." "About that," Liam said, his voice dropping into the tone I'd come to recognize as his asking for something voice. "I could use your help preparing." You're so much better at these things, knowing what to say, how to present myself. Despite the disappointment of being excluded, I felt needed again. Valuable. For the next 3 days, I researched Vincent Blackmore obsessively. I created a dossier on his investment history, personal interests, and conversation topics to avoid. I helped Liam select his outfit, practice potential questions, and even wrote out talking points on index cards he could review before the meeting. The night of the meeting, I waited by my phone. Hours passed with no updates. Around midnight, I finally texted. How did it go? No response. The next morning, still nothing. By afternoon, anxiety had me checking his social media. That's when I saw it, a photo of Liam at what was clearly the country club, arm around a striking woman with dark hair who definitely wasn't me. The caption, game-changing night with the legendary Vincent Blackmore. Big things ahead. Special thanks to Alessandra for making the introduction. I stared at Alessandra. Poised, elegant, in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked like she belonged in that world. Like Liam now belonged there too. When Liam finally called that evening, he was euphoric. Vincent is in. He wants to fund the full development and introduce me to his network. This is happening, Deanna. That's wonderful, I said, my voice flat. Who's Alessandra? Oh, he said, surprise in his voice. She's Vincent's goddaughter. Works in the program. She's been helping me refine my pitch. Funny. You never mentioned her before. It didn't seem important, he said dismissively. Anyway, Vincent wants to fast-track everything. I'll be moving to the executive development track next week. My own team, my own office, the works. I swallowed my hurt and forced enthusiasm into my voice. I'm proud of you. After we hung up, I scrolled back through months of messages between us. Not once had he mentioned someone named Alessandra. But when I returned to his Instagram and clicked on her profile, I found dozens of interactions dating back nearly 3 months, almost from the beginning of the program. That night, I also discovered something else. The credit card we shared, the one I'd been paying off each month, the one that held thousands in debt from his prototype development, had new charges. A $1,200 dinner at an upscale restaurant. A $900 charge at a jewelry store. All from the night he was supposedly having casual drinks with Vincent. I texted him, we need to talk about the credit card charges. His response came quickly for once, don't worry about those. I'll transfer money to cover it when my first funding check comes through. I wanted to believe him. But something had changed. The fog of devotion was beginning to lift, revealing glimpses of a reality I wasn't ready to accept. 6 months into the Tech Forward program, Liam had gone from promising participant to their rising star. His app, a revolutionary communication platform for businesses that incorporated elements we developed together in our apartment, was being fast-tracked for launch. The official announcement would come at Tech Forward's annual gala, where major investors, tech journalists, and industry leaders would gather. You're coming, right? I asked during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. We hadn't seen each other in person for nearly 3 weeks. Of course, he said, sounding distracted. I'll put you on the list. It's black tie, so I'll need something appropriate, I finished for him. Yeah, he said. Look, I've got to run. Another meeting. I'll text you details later. The details never came. 3 days before the gala, I still hadn't received any information about tickets, time, or location. My texts went unanswered for hours, sometimes days. When I called, it went straight to voicemail. Finally, the night before the event, he called. Hey, about tomorrow, he began, his voice tense. There's been a slight change of plans. My stomach dropped. I already knew what was coming. The guest list is extremely limited. Vincent's bringing potential Series A investors, and they've had to cut back on plus ones. I'm not a plus one, I said quietly. I'm your partner. The person who helped build this. I know, he said quickly. And everyone knows how important you've been. But this is politics, Deanna. I can't risk alienating Vincent or the investors. So I'm what, a liability now? The words tasted bitter. That's not what I said, he snapped. Then, softer, look, I'll make it up to you. Once the deal is signed, we'll celebrate properly. Just the two of us. I wanted to argue, to remind him of the nights I'd stayed up debugging his code, the credit cards I'd maxed out to fund his prototypes, the career opportunities I'd passed up to support his dream. But exhaustion won out. Fine, I said. Good luck tomorrow. After we hung up, I sat in the dark of my apartment, our apartment once, surrounded by the whiteboards we'd filled with ideas, some still untouched from when he lived here. His handwriting mixed with mine, a visual representation of what I thought we were building together. Something inside me couldn't accept being sidelined from this moment. After everything I'd sacrificed, I deserved to witness his triumph, our triumph. So I made a decision that would ultimately change everything. I called Carmen. I need a favor, I said when she answered. And I need you not to ask too many questions. Carmen worked for a PR firm that occasionally handled tech events. As luck would have it, her company was managing aspects of the Tech Forward Gala. I can get you in as my assistant, she said. But Deanna, are you sure about this? If he didn't want you there. I just need to see it for myself, I said. One way or another. The night of the gala, I dressed in the one designer dress I owned, a sleek black number I'd bought on clearance for a work event years ago. Carmen lent me jewelry and a pair of heels that matched. As we approached the venue, a restored historic theater now converted into an event space, anxiety twisted my stomach. Remember, you're my assistant tonight, Carmen whispered as we checked in. Stay professional, stay calm. Inside, the space had been transformed into a tech wonderland. Prototype displays, interactive screens, and networking areas filled the main floor, while a stage dominated the front of the room. Waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres among the black-tie crowd. I spotted Liam immediately. He was standing near the stage with a small group, including Vincent Blackmore, distinguishable by his signature white hair and imposing height, and beside him, her hand resting casually on Liam's arm, was Alessandra. She looked even more stunning in person. Designer gown, perfect makeup, hair swept into an elegant updo. She belonged here in a way I never would. But what knocked the breath from my lungs wasn't her hand on his arm. It was the way Liam looked at her, the same way he used to look at me. Like she hung the moon and stars. I need to get closer, I whispered to Carmen. I need to hear what they're saying. Deanna, don't. But I was already moving, grabbing a tray of champagne from a passing server and adopting the invisible demeanor of service staff. I circulated, gradually working my way toward Liam's group. I was 3 feet away when I heard Vincent Blackmore's booming voice. The real genius of this platform is the proprietary algorithm. Liam, my boy, you've revolutionized how these systems talk to each other. My blood froze. The algorithm. My algorithm. The one I'd developed during my master's program, the one I'd refined over countless nights while Liam handled the user interface. He'd always said we were co-creators. Thank you, sir, Liam replied, his voice smooth with practiced confidence. I'd been developing the concept for years, but it took the right environment to bring it to life. And the right inspiration, Alessandra added, smiling up at him. Sometimes it takes a fresh perspective to unlock true innovation. Liam's arms slipped around her waist, pulling her closer. Alessandra has been instrumental in refining the concept. Her background in user psychology transformed how we approach the whole system. We. Her. Not me. Not us. When's the wedding, you two? Someone else in the circle asked. Or is that still under wraps? Wedding? My grip tightened on the tray, champagne glasses tinkling dangerously. Alessandra laughed, a musical sound that carried. We're focusing on business first, but... She lifted her left hand, where a diamond caught the light, the same size and cut as one Liam and I had once jokingly admired in a jewelry store window. Let's just say I couldn't wait on some things, Liam added, pressing a kiss to her temple. The tray slipped from my hands. Champagne glasses shattered on the marble floor, drawing every eye in the vicinity, including Liam's. Our gazes locked. Recognition, shock, then something worse, embarrassment, flashed across his face. "Excuse me," he muttered to the group, then strode toward me, gripping my elbow and steering me toward a quiet corner. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, keeping a smile plastered on his face for anyone watching. "Apparently witnessing my replacement," I said, my voice shaking. "Engaged, Liam? You're engaged?" His expression hardened. "This isn't the time or place. When would be convenient for you? After the honeymoon? Or maybe never, that seems to be your preference." A muscle twitched in his jaw. "You need to leave. Now." "That algorithm is mine," I said, lowering my voice. "The core functionality, the adaptive response system, all of it came from my thesis work." "We both contributed," he said dismissively. "But that's ancient history. The product has evolved well beyond those early concepts." "With Alessandra's help?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. His expression softened slightly, almost pitying. "Deanna, be realistic. You were essential in the beginning stages. I'll always be grateful for that. But this," he gestured around us, "this is a different world. Alessandra understands this environment. Her father is on Tech Forward's board. She has connections I need. And I was what? A stepping stone?" He sighed. "You were important to me. But people grow, they evolve. Sometimes they grow apart. And sometimes they discard people once they've taken what they need." My voice was steady now, the shock crystallizing into something harder. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at me. "I have to get back. They're announcing the funding in 10 minutes. Liam, I won't be erased from this. That algorithm was refined and rebuilt from the ground up by my team," he interrupted. "Look, I'll make sure you're compensated for your early input. A consultant fee or something. But you need to be realistic about your contribution. My contribution paid your rent for 2 years. It fed you. It clothed you. It kept the lights on while you chased your dreams." Something cold flickered in his eyes. "And I appreciate that. But that was your choice. I never promised." "You promised everything," I whispered. "Every single day, in 1,000 different ways." His expression closed off completely. "I'm sorry you feel that way. But this is my moment, and I'm not going to let you ruin it. Please leave quietly, or I'll have security escort you out." With that, he turned and walked back to his circle, sliding his arm around Alessandra as if our conversation had never happened. Carmen found me minutes later, huddled in a back hallway, trying to breathe through the pain crushing my chest. "I heard," she said simply, wrapping an arm around me. "Let's get out of here." As she led me toward the exit, I heard the announcement begin. Liam's name echoed through the sound system, followed by thunderous applause. I didn't turn around to watch him take the stage. Outside in the cool night air, Carmen held me while I shook with rage and grief. "He stole my work," I said through tears. "He took my algorithm, my ideas, everything." Carmen stiffened. "Do you have proof? Documentation?" I nodded slowly. "Everything. All the original code is on my laptop. Emails where we discussed development. Even the early whiteboard sessions, I took photos of everything." A determined look crossed Carmen's face. "Then this isn't over." Not by a long shot. Standing there on the sidewalk, watching Liam's triumph through the venue's windows, something crystallized inside me. The woman who had sacrificed everything for Liam's dream died that night. In her place stood someone new, someone who understood exactly how valuable she truly was. And exactly what had been stolen from her. The weeks following the gala were a blur of grief and fury. I cycled through emotions: devastation, rage, humiliation, and most dangerously, determination. While Liam's star rose in the tech world, I retreated to catalog exactly what he'd taken from me. I didn't just want evidence, I wanted ammunition. My apartment became command central. I covered the same whiteboards once filled with our shared dreams with a new mission: reclaiming what was mine. Carmen helped me organize everything chronologically. Every email exchange about the algorithm development. Dated photographs of whiteboard sessions showing my handwriting on key concepts. Timestamped code commits showing my contributions. Financial records, rent payments, groceries, utility bills I'd covered. Credit card statements showing business expenses I'd funded. Text messages discussing technical breakthroughs where I'd solved problems he couldn't. "This is more than enough to prove co-creation," Carmen said, surveying our work. "You could sue for recognition and compensation." "I don't want compensation," I said quietly. "I want justice." 2 days later, I received a certified letter. Inside was a check for $25,000 and a legal document titled Consultant Release of Claims. The letter explained that Liam's new company, Nexus Communications, a name we'd chosen together years ago, acknowledged my early-stage consultation work and offered this good faith payment in exchange for releasing any claims to the intellectual property. The amount was insulting, less than I'd spent supporting him over the years, a fraction of what the technology was worth, and nowhere near what I deserved as a co-creator. I called a lawyer that afternoon. Ryan Everett specialized in tech intellectual property disputes and agreed to meet me the following day. "This is textbook IP theft," Ryan said after reviewing my evidence. "But I need to be honest with you, these cases are brutal. You're talking about going up against Vincent Blackmore and his legal team. They'll try to bury you in paperwork and legal fees." "I can't just let him take everything," I said. Ryan nodded slowly. "There's another approach. Sometimes the threat of exposure is more effective than actual litigation. If investors learn that the core technology is disputed, it could spook them." "You're suggesting blackmail?" I asked, surprised. "I'm suggesting leverage," Ryan corrected. "But we need to be smart. Right now, Liam's riding high on publicity and investor confidence. We need more intelligence before making a move." That night, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Deanna?" "It's Kira from Tech Forward Admin. We need to talk. Privately." I was cautious but curious. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop far from the Tech Forward campus. Kira was young, barely out of college, with nervous eyes that darted around the cafe as if expecting to be followed. "I'm risking my job by talking to you," she said immediately. "But what's happening isn't right." "What do you mean?" "Liam's entire rise at Tech Forward has been engineered. Alessandra and her father groom promising developers, help them refine their concepts, then take controlling interest once the product is market ready." My heart pounded. "How do you know this?" "I process all the paperwork. The contracts, the ownership agreements. You're not the first partner who's been displaced. There have been others." She slid a flash drive across the table. "These are copies of Liam's contracts with Tech Forward and Blackmore Ventures. Pay attention to the equity distribution and the intellectual property assignments." I stared at the tiny drive. "Why are you doing this?" Kira's expression hardened. "Because 6 months ago, it was my brother they pushed out of his own company. He killed himself 3 weeks later." My blood ran cold. "Be careful," she added, standing to leave. "The Blackmores don't play fair." That night, I reviewed the documents. What I found made my stomach turn. Liam had signed away 75% of the company to Blackmore Ventures. More disturbingly, he'd certified that he was the sole creator and owner of all intellectual property, a blatant lie that could expose him to fraud charges. But the most revealing document was an email exchange between Liam and Alessandra from 3 months earlier. "Alessandra, the only loose end is Deanna. Vincent doesn't like unknown variables. Liam, she's not a problem. She has no documentation of her contributions. It was all collaborative whiteboarding, nothing in writing. Alessandra, make sure it stays that way. Once we announce, she can't have any claim. Clean break, remember? Liam, already handling it. Trust me, by launch she'll be ancient history. I read the exchange over and over, each word a fresh betrayal. They'd been planning to cut me out for months. Every unanswered call, every cancelled plan, every excuse had been strategic. The next day, TechCrunch ran a glowing profile of Liam titled, From Basement to Boardroom, How Liam Hargrove Built a Communication Revolution. The article painted him as a solo genius who'd overcome impossible odds through sheer determination and brilliance. There wasn't a single mention of me. Even worse was the personal section, where Liam described meeting Alessandra as the moment everything changed, and credited her with believing in his vision when no one else would. I threw my laptop across the room. Carmen found me hours later, surrounded by broken glass from the framed photos I'd smashed against the wall. This ends now, she said firmly, helping me to my feet. We're taking this public. We can't, I said, showing her the contracts. Look at his investors. They'd crush me. Then we need to be smarter than them, Carmen said. I have an idea, but it's risky. Her plan was elegant in its simplicity. Carmen's PR firm was handling the launch party for Nexus Communications next month. All the major tech journalists would be there, along with investors and industry leaders. I can get you in as event staff again, she explained. But this time, you won't be serving champagne. You'll be planting evidence. What kind of evidence? Carmen smiled grimly. The kind that makes tech investors run for the hills. Over the next 3 weeks, we developed our strategy. While Liam and Alessandra prepared for their triumphant product launch, I dug deeper into their operation. I discovered Liam had modified my original algorithm, not improved it, but deliberately altered sections to hide its origins. However, the core functionality remained unmistakably my work. With Ryan's help, I documented every instance of code theft and prepared a comprehensive intellectual property claim. We didn't file it, not yet. That was our nuclear option. Instead, we prepared something more devastating, proof that the Blackmore investment pattern Kira had described wasn't just unethical, it was potentially illegal. Ryan connected me with 2 other developers who'd been pushed out of their companies after Blackmore investment. Together, we compiled evidence showing a pattern of predatory practices. 1 week before the launch party, I received another unexpected message, this time from Daniel, a developer who had worked directly on Liam's team at TechForward. I know what happened to you, his message read. I want to help. Daniel and I met at a dive bar miles from any tech hub. He was jittery, constantly checking the door. Liam's app is failing, he said without preamble. The current version is nowhere near what they're promising investors. They've been faking demos using pre-recorded sequences. My breath caught. They're fraudulently raising money? Daniel nodded. The algorithm, your algorithm, was working perfectly until Liam insisted on modifications to disguise its origins. Now the whole system is unstable. They're hiding catastrophic bugs from investors and hoping to fix them post-launch. Do you have proof? He slid a portable hard drive across the table. Internal testing videos. Bug reports they've buried. And emails discussing how to hide the problems from Blackmore. Why are you doing this? I asked. Daniel looked away. Because Liam took credit for my work too. Not like he did with yours, but enough that I'm just a footnote in something I helped build. He met my eyes again. And because what they're doing is wrong. People will invest millions based on lies. I added Daniel's evidence to our growing arsenal. The picture becoming clear was far worse than personal betrayal. Liam and the Blackmores weren't just stealing ideas, they were running an elaborate investment scheme built on intellectual property theft and fraudulent demonstrations. The night before the launch party, I stood in my apartment surrounded by evidence boards, backup drives, and legal documents. Tomorrow would change everything, not just for me, but for Liam, the the Blackmores, and possibly the entire tech investment community. Carmen arrived with our final preparations, staff credentials for the event, earpieces for communication, and a detailed timeline. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "Once we start, there's no going back." I touched the silver pendant Liam had given me, the one I'd stopped wearing but kept as a reminder of his betrayal. Tomorrow, I'd wear it one last time. "I've spent years supporting his dream," I said, my voice steady. Now it's time he faced the reality of how he achieved it. As I laid out my outfit for tomorrow, the plain black uniform of event staff, chosen specifically for invisibility, my phone buzzed with a news alert. TechCrunch again, with a preview of tomorrow's launch. Nexus Communications poised to secure $50 million Series A round at tomorrow's launch. $50 million. For my stolen algorithm. For my sacrificed years. For my broken heart. Tomorrow, the man who thought he had everything would learn how quickly it could all disappear. And the woman he'd underestimated would be watching from the shadows, finally ready to reclaim what was hers. The day of the Nexus Communications launch arrived with the kind of perfect weather that felt like an insult, clear skies and golden California sunshine, as if the universe itself was celebrating Liam's triumph. The venue was the Silicon Valley Convention Center's Grand Hall, transformed into a tech wonderland with interactive displays, holographic projections, and demonstration stations showcasing the revolutionary communication platform built on my stolen work. I arrived 3 hours early with the catering staff, dressed in the standard black pants and white button-down that rendered service workers invisible to the tech elite. Carmen had secured me a position on the champagne service team, mobile, unrestricted, and with access to every corner of the event. "Testing, 1-2, Carmen's voice came through the tiny earpiece I wore. She was stationed in the production booth, monitoring security cameras and coordinating our timing. "You're clear on the west entrance. Proceed to storage area B." I navigated through the backstage chaos of event setup, following her directions to a service corridor where we'd established our command center in an unused storage closet. Inside, Daniel waited with his laptop open, already connected to the venue's Wi-Fi network. "I'm in their presentation system," he said without looking up. "I can access their demo sequence whenever we're ready." I checked my watch. 2 hours until doors open. Let's finalize everything. Our plan was precise. Phase 1, during the pre-presentation reception, would circulate with champagne, eavesdropping on key investors and planting seeds of doubt through carefully timed, overheard conversations with other staff. Phase 2, Daniel would hack into the presentation system and replace Liam's carefully scripted product demonstration with actual footage of the system failures they'd been hiding. Phase 3, at the height of the chaos, would approach key technology journalists with a complete dossier of evidence, my original algorithm work, proof of Liam's fraud, and testimony from other developers the Blackmores had pushed out. If everything went according to plan, by evening's end, Liam and the Blackmores would be facing a full investor revolt and media scrutiny that could collapse their empire. "Remember," Daniel warned, "once we start this, Blackmore will know exactly who's behind it. There's no going back." "I've already lost everything that matters," I replied. "What else can they take?" As we completed our preparations, Carmen's voice came urgently through my earpiece. "Deanna, we have a problem. Liam just arrived, he's headed to the main stage for a technical check, but he's not alone." "Alessandra?" I guessed. "No, your parents." The world tilted beneath my feet. "My parents? That's impossible. They live in Michigan. They've never even met Liam." "Well, they're here now. And they look happy. Like guests of honor." I rushed to the production booth where Carmen sat surrounded by monitors. She pointed to one showing the main stage area. There stood Liam, polished and confident in an expensive suit, his arm around my mother's shoulders while my father beamed beside them, shaking hands with Vincent Blackmore. "Can you get audio?" I asked, my voice strangled. Carmen adjusted some settings, and suddenly their voices filled the booth. "So proud to finally meet the man who's made our daughter so happy," my mother was saying. When Liam told us he wanted to fly us out as a surprise for the engagement announcement, we couldn't say no. Engagement announcement? Deanna has no idea you're here, Liam said, his voice warm with the charisma that had once melted my heart. She thinks you're still coming next month for the formal party. She's going to be so surprised when I call you both on stage during the presentation. Such a romantic gesture, Vincent Blackmore added. The perfect personal touch to humanize the technology narrative for the press. My father clapped Liam on the shoulder. You've made our girl happier than we've ever seen her. That apartment you showed us yesterday, it's absolutely perfect for you two to start your life together. Apartment? My mind raced. What apartment? Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn, would you mind if I borrowed Liam for a moment? We need to review some technical aspects before the guests arrive. Alessandra appeared in the frame, professional and poised in a sleek business suit. Of course, dear, my mother said. We still need to freshen up at the hotel anyway. Will we see you at the family dinner tonight? Family dinner? With Alessandra? Absolutely, she smiled. I wouldn't miss it. As my parents walked away, Alessandra's expression shifted subtly. She pulled Liam aside, lowering her voice, but the microphone still caught every word. Are you sure about this engagement announcement? It seems unnecessarily complicated. Liam glanced around before answering. It's the cleanest solution. Deanna's been making noise about her contributions to the algorithm. This ties her to me personally while we establish legal ownership of everything through the marriage. Once the patents are secured in my name as her husband, we can proceed with the original plan. And if she doesn't agree to the engagement? His smile turned cold. She will. I've spent years learning exactly what buttons to push with Deanna. Trust me, between her parents' approval, public pressure, and the promise of finally being acknowledged, she'll say yes. And then? And then we follow the prenup to the letter. She gets the visibility of being the founder's wife for a suitable period, I get full legal rights to everything she helped create, and eventually, we part ways with her none the wiser about the real arrangement. Alessandra nodded. Vincent's concerned about today. If she shows up. She won't, Liam interrupted. I told her it was invitation only and security was strictly enforced. Besides, what can she do? Make a scene? Claim I stole her work? No one would believe her over me at this point. I'm the face of Nexus now. They moved out of microphone range, heads together in continued conversation. I stood frozen, unable to process what I'd just witnessed. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just theft. It was methodical, calculated destruction of my life, my work, and my future, all while manipulating my parents into unwitting accomplices. Deanna? Carmen touched my arm gently. What do you want to do? The rage that filled me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, cold, clear, and absolutely focused. Change of plans, I said. I need everything we have on the Blackmore's previous acquisitions. All of it. And I need to make a call. Within 20 minutes, I was speaking with Ryan Everett, outlining a new strategy. No longer would we merely expose the fraud behind Nexus. Now, we would dismantle the entire Blackmore operation. As guests began arriving for the launch party, I moved through the crowd with mechanical precision, serving champagne while cataloging faces, conversations, and vulnerabilities. Tech journalists hungry for exclusive scoops. Investors nervous about their portfolios. Former developers watching their stolen work being celebrated by others. From my earpiece, Carmen kept me updated on my parents' movements, now seated in the front row of the presentation area, programs in hand, eagerly waiting for a moment that would never come. An hour into the event, Vincent Blackmore took the stage to thunderous applause. Today marks a new era in communication technology, he announced. A revolution born from the brilliant mind of a young innovator who represents the future of our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, the founder and CEO of Nexus Communications, Liam Hargrove. Liam bounded onto the stage, the picture of tech world success in his perfectly tailored suit. The crowd erupted in applause as he took the microphone. Thank you all for being here to witness something truly transformative, he began. But before I show you the technology that will change how the world connects, I want to share something personal. My stomach clenched. Here it came. The journey to this moment wasn't a solo one. Behind every success story is a network of support, belief, and love. He scanned the crowd with practiced sincerity. I'd like to invite two very special people to join me on stage, the parents of my incredible partner, who has been my foundation throughout this journey. My parents rose from their seats, beaming with pride as they climbed the steps to the stage. My mother wiped away tears as Liam embraced them both. Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn have flown in specially for this moment, Liam continued, because today isn't just about launching a company. It's about celebrating a partnership, professional and personal. The crowd murmured appreciatively at the human interest angle. Several journalists leaned forward, sensing the perfect emotional hook for their coverage. Deanna Vaughn has been with me from the earliest days of Nexus, believing in this vision when it was nothing but sketches and dreams. And today, I'm thrilled to announce that she's agreed to embark on a new journey with me. The lie hung in the air like poison. I hadn't agreed to anything. I hadn't even been asked. Where is the lovely bride-to-be? Vincent prompted, looking around the room. Liam's smile faltered for just a moment. Unfortunately, Deanna couldn't be here today, last-minute work commitment. But her spirit is absolutely present in everything we're celebrating. My mother looked confused, glancing around as if expecting to see me emerge from the crowd. My father's smile dimmed slightly. Well, let's give her a round of applause anyway. Vincent recovered smoothly. And now, to the technology that's bringing us all here today. As Liam launched into his presentation, I slipped away from the main hall and into the back corridor where Daniel waited. It's worse than we thought, I said, my voice hollow. They're planning to use a fake engagement and marriage to legally claim my work. Daniel's eyes widened. That's diabolical. And it changes everything, I replied. We're not just exposing the product fraud now. We're taking down the whole operation. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text message to an unfamiliar number, a contact Ryan had provided earlier. Evidence ready. Blackmore fraud confirmed. Proceed. The response came immediately, agents in position. As I returned to the main hall, Liam was reaching the climax of his presentation. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, a live demonstration of the Nexus platform's revolutionary capabilities. He moved to a sleek console at the center of the stage, confidence radiating from every gesture. Nexus doesn't just connect people, it anticipates needs, adapts to patterns, and evolves with use. Watch as I demonstrate our adaptive response system. He pressed a button to initiate the demonstration, completely unaware that Daniel had replaced his carefully scripted demo with the internal testing videos showing catastrophic system failures. The massive screen behind Liam suddenly displayed a terminal window filled with error messages, followed by video clips of frustrated developers trying to fix critical bugs, and finally, emails between Liam and the development team discussing how to hide these issues from investors. His voice died mid-sentence as he registered what was happening. Panicked, he tried to stop the presentation, but the system no longer responded to his commands. There seems to be a technical, he began, but was interrupted by commotion at the back of the hall. Men and women in dark suits moved purposefully through the crowd, badges displayed. SEC. Securities and Exchange Commission. Nobody leave the premises. The lead agent took the stage, gently moving my confused parents aside. Vincent Blackmore and Liam Hargrove, we have a warrant to seize all materials related to Nexus Communications on suspicion of investment fraud and securities violations. The room erupted in chaos. Journalists frantically took photos while investors pushed toward the exits. Alessandra stood frozen near the stage, horror dawning on her perfect features as she realized what was happening. Through it all, I remained still, a champagne tray balanced in my hands as I watched 5 years of my life, my work, my trust, and my heart collapse into ruins. Liam's eyes scanned the crowd desperately until they locked with mine. Recognition dawned, followed by shock, betrayal, and then, most satisfyingly, fear. I raised my champagne glass in a silent toast, then turned and walked away as federal agents closed in around him. Behind me, I heard my mother's confused voice. "Where's Deanna? What's happening? Liam, where is our daughter?" I didn't turn back. I couldn't face them yet, not with the truth of how completely I'd been betrayed, not with the reality that their daughter had just destroyed the man they'd embraced as a future son-in-law. Outside in the bright afternoon sunshine, I finally let the champagne tray fall from my numb fingers. Victory should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow, scraped empty of everything that had once defined me. Carmen found me there, sitting on a bench overlooking the bay, the sounds of chaos from the convention center still audible in the distance. "It's done," she said simply, sitting beside me. The SEC had been building a case against Blackmore for months. Your evidence was the final piece they needed. And Liam? Arrested. Along with Vincent and Alessandra. Securities fraud, wire fraud, intellectual property theft, the works. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt lost. What happens now? Carmen squeezed my hand. Now comes the hard part. Rebuilding. As if on cue, my phone rang, my father's number. I stared at the screen, unable to answer, unable to explain how the daughter they thought was happily engaged had just orchestrated their supposed future son-in-law's destruction. The phone continued ringing as tears finally came, not for Liam, but for the woman I had been. Trusting. Hopeful. Believing in partnership and sacrifice for love. That woman was gone now, burned away in the fire of betrayal and revenge. Who would emerge from these ashes remained to be seen. The 3 weeks following the Nexus Communications implosion were the darkest of my life. What should have been vindication instead felt like another kind of destruction, this time, self-inflicted. The media frenzy was immediate and merciless. Tech blogs that had once celebrated Liam's genius now dissected his downfall with equal enthusiasm. Tech wunderkind or fraudster, screamed the headlines. Blackmore empire crumbles amid fraud allegations. My name appeared in every story, no longer invisible but cast in the harsh light of scandal, jilted girlfriend behind Nexus takedown. Some painted me as a whistleblower hero, others as a vindictive woman scorned, but none captured the hollow victory I felt watching my life's work collapse into a legal battleground. My parents refused to speak to me for 10 days. When they finally called, my mother's voice was strained with confusion and hurt. "Why didn't you tell us what was happening?" she asked. "We looked like fools up there on that stage." "I tried to tell you about Liam months ago," I reminded her gently. "You said I was being negative, that I should be more supportive of his ambitions." "We didn't know he was stealing your work," my father interjected. "We thought you were just going through a rough patch." The unspoken accusation hung between us. If you'd been more understanding, more patient, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe you would still have the future we wanted for you. Even in my vindication, I was somehow still the one who had failed. The professional fallout was equally devastating. My workplace put me on administrative leave, while they assessed the potential liability of employing someone embroiled in a high-profile intellectual property dispute. Though I had been the victim of theft, the stain of controversy made me toxic in Silicon Valley's risk-averse corporate culture. "It's temporary," my manager assured me. "Just until things settle down." But we both knew better. Things wouldn't settle down. My career in tech was effectively over, at least in any company concerned with their public image or investor relations. Financially, I was approaching crisis. My savings had been depleted supporting Liam and then building the legal case against him. My credit cards were maxed out. Without my income, I had perhaps 2 months before I couldn't make rent. The legal battle for my algorithm dragged on. Ryan warned me it could take years to fully resolve, with no guarantee of compensation even if I won. "The good news is the criminal charges against Liam and the Blackmores are solid," he explained during one of our weekly update calls. "The bad news is that intellectual property cases like yours are complicated. They'll argue the algorithm evolved significantly from your original work." "But it didn't," I protested. "They deliberately obscured the origins, but the core functionality is still mine." "I believe you," Ryan said patiently. But proving it to the court's satisfaction is another matter. Meanwhile, the company assets are frozen during the fraud investigation. Even if you win, there might not be anything left to claim. My apartment, once my sanctuary, then Liam's workspace, now my war room, became a prison of memories. I couldn't look at the kitchen without remembering late nights cooking while Liam worked. I couldn't see the living room whiteboard without picturing us mapping out a future together, both personal and professional. Sleep became my enemy. When I did manage to drift off, nightmares waited, Liam laughing as he walked away with everything I'd built, my parents embracing him while turning their backs on me, courtrooms where nobody could hear my voice no matter how loudly I screamed. Carmen tried her best to pull me out of my spiral. "You should be celebrating," she insisted one evening, having arrived unannounced with takeout and wine. "You exposed a major tech fraud. You brought down Vincent Blackmore, for God's sake. And what do I have to show for it?" I asked, gesturing around my increasingly bare apartment. I'd been selling furniture to cover bills. No job, no savings, no career prospects, and parents who think I overreacted to having my life's work stolen. "You have your integrity," she countered. "And your brilliant mind. The same one that created an algorithm so valuable people committed fraud to steal it." I wanted to believe her. But integrity doesn't pay rent, and brilliance means nothing when the industry views you as a liability. The lowest point came exactly 1 month after the Nexus implosion. I received an email from a tech journalist requesting an interview for a "Where Are They Now?" piece about the scandal. "We're particularly interested in exploring the personal relationship angle," the email read. "Our sources indicate you and Mr. Hargrove were planning to announce your engagement the day of his arrest. Can you comment on the emotional impact of discovering his simultaneous relationship with Alessandra Blackmore?" I closed my laptop and reached for the pendant Liam had given me, the one I'd kept as a reminder of his betrayal. In a moment of furious clarity, I ripped it from my neck, shattering the cheap silver against the wall. That's when I saw it. A tiny piece of the pendant had broken off, revealing something hidden inside the casing. I picked up the fragments with trembling hands and prized the pendant open completely. Inside was a micro SD card. My heart pounding, I inserted it into my laptop. The card contained a single encrypted file. After several attempts with different passwords, I tried the name Liam had originally wanted to call our app, before marketing consultants had suggested Nexus. The file opened, revealing a video recording, Liam and Alessandra in a hotel room, discussing their plan in explicit detail. "Once we secure the full patent rights through marriage, we transfer ownership to the holding company," Liam was saying. "Clean, legal, and completely irreversible." "And she never suspects?" Alessandra asked, curled against him in bed. "Deanna sees what she wants to see," Liam replied with casual cruelty. "She wanted a partner pursuing dreams together. I gave her that narrative." "What about the other developers?" Daniel's been asking questions. "Same strategy we used with your father's previous acquisitions. Isolated payoffs, NDAs, and if necessary, evidence of code theft we can threaten them with. Nobody wants to be branded a thief in this industry." The video continued for nearly 30 minutes, outlining the entire scheme, not just for my algorithm, but for at least 3 other stolen technologies. It was the smoking gun that would cement the criminal case against them. But what broke me wasn't the confirmation of their fraud. It was hearing Liam speak so coldly about our relationship, about me, with calculated detachment, as if the years we'd spent together had been nothing but a business transaction to him. "She really thought we were building something together," he laughed at one point. "Can you imagine?" I slammed the laptop closed, unable to watch anymore. Then I curled up on my increasingly bare floor and sobbed until I had nothing left. No tears, no anger, no fight. Hours later, my phone rang. It was Ryan. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "Blackmore's legal team is countersuing." "For what?" I asked, my voice raw from crying. "They're claiming you violated confidentiality agreements by exposing proprietary technology to the SEC. They're seeking damages of $2 million. The room spun around me. "That's insane. I never signed any confidentiality agreement with Blackmore Ventures. No, but they're claiming the agreement Liam signed extended to you as his partner and collaborator. It's a stretch legally, but they have the resources to drag this out for years. I can't fight this anymore, Ryan, I whispered. I have nothing left. Silence hung between us for a long moment. Then, there might be an option we haven't considered. It's unconventional, but given the circumstances. I'll try anything, I said. What is it? A Phoenix play, he replied. We let Nexus burn completely, then rebuild from the ashes under your control. How? You have the original algorithm, the pure version before Liam corrupted it trying to hide your contribution. What if, instead of fighting for recognition of past work, you focused on future applications? A tiny spark flickered in the darkness that had enveloped me. Go on. I have a client, Alara Systems. They've been looking for exactly the kind of adaptive communication technology you developed. If we approached them with your original work, positioned as the next generation beyond what Nexus promised but failed to deliver, Blackmore would sue immediately, I pointed out. Not if we time it right. There's a hearing next week where the judge will likely rule on freezing all patent applications related to the disputed technology. If the ruling goes as expected, nobody, not Blackmore, not Liam, not even you, can file new patents on the core technology until ownership is determined. So how does that help me? Because while the core algorithm may be in dispute, applications of that technology in new domains wouldn't be covered by the ruling. You could develop an entirely new implementation, something Liam never envisioned. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair, a faint, flickering possibility. I'd need resources, I said slowly. Development support. Legal protection. Alara could provide all of that, Ryan assured me. If, and this is the big if, you can show them something revolutionary enough to justify the risk of tangling with Blackmore, even indirectly. I glanced at my whiteboard, no longer covered in evidence of Liam's betrayal, but blank. Waiting. I need 3 days, I said finally. 3 days to develop a proof of concept. I'll set up the meeting, Ryan promised. But Deanna, this is your last shot. Make it count. After ending the call, I stared at the blank whiteboard for a long time. The woman who had once filled it with dreams shared with Liam was gone. The woman who had covered it with evidence of betrayal had burned herself out in pursuit of justice. Who was I now? What would I build from these ashes? As midnight approached, I finally rose and picked up a marker. In bold letters across the top of the board, I wrote a single word. Phoenix. 3 days. 72 hours to reinvent not just my algorithm, but myself. I stood before the blank whiteboard, marker in hand, facing the impossible choice that would define everything that came after: remain trapped in the past, fighting for recognition of what had been stolen, or leap into an uncertain future, building something entirely new from the ruins. The first path offered the comfort of righteousness. I was the victim, and eventually, the world would acknowledge that truth. But it also meant years of legal battles, financial devastation, and defining my entire existence through the lens of Liam's betrayal. The second path was terrifying precisely because it required letting go. Not of the legal case, that would continue, but of the emotional investment in its outcome. It meant accepting that while justice might eventually come, my life and work couldn't wait for that validation. At 2 a.m., I made my decision. I erased Phoenix from the board and replaced it with a simple question. What would I build if Liam had never existed? The answer came with surprising clarity. The algorithm I'd created hadn't been about communication platforms. That was Liam's vision. My interest had always been in adaptive learning systems that could evolve through human interaction. I'd allowed my work to be narrowed, constrained to fit Liam's commercial aspirations. What might it become if freed from those limitations? By sunrise, the whiteboard was covered with a new architecture, one that expanded the algorithm beyond anything Nexus had attempted. Where Liam had seen a business communication tool, I envisioned a framework that could revolutionize how AI systems learn from human interaction across any domain: healthcare, education, creative collaboration. I worked without stopping, fueled by a combination of cheap coffee and an almost manic energy. This wasn't just about impressing Alara Systems anymore. This was about reclaiming my own vision, the one I'd compromised and contorted to fit Liam's narrower ambitions. On the second day, I hit a wall, a fundamental limitation in the algorithm's architecture that I couldn't solve alone. Desperate and exhausted, I called the one person who might understand both the technical challenge and the personal stakes, Daniel. He arrived within an hour, surveying my whiteboard-covered walls with widening eyes. "This is ambitious," he said finally. "And brilliant. But flawed," I pointed out, highlighting the critical junction where the system kept breaking down. "I can't get past this bottleneck without completely rebuilding the core architecture." Daniel studied the problem, then pulled up a chair across from me. "Maybe that's exactly what you need to do. Start from scratch?" "We don't have time." "Not from scratch," he clarified. "From first principles. The original algorithm, the one you created before Liam ever touched it, what was its primary insight?" I closed my eyes, forcing myself back to that initial breakthrough moment years ago. That systems learn most effectively through organic conversation rather than structured inputs. "So build from there," Daniel urged. "Not from what Nexus became, but from your original vision, before it was corrupted." For the next 18 hours, Daniel and I worked side by side, stripping away years of compromises and commercial considerations to reveal the elegant core of my initial work. As the algorithm took new shape, I felt something unfamiliar, not the vindication I'd sought through legal means, but something more powerful, creative liberation. By dawn of the third day, we had a working prototype demonstrating the algorithm's adaptive capabilities in an entirely new domain, collaborative creative problem-solving between humans and AI. "This is what Alara has been searching for," Daniel said, watching the system learn and evolve through our test interactions. "It's beyond anything Nexus promised. But is it legally distinct enough?" I worried. "The core principles still derive from my original work, the work Liam stole. The application and implementation are completely novel," Daniel assured me. "And with the expected patent freeze, Blackmore can't claim ownership of applications they never envisioned." As I prepared for the meeting with Alara Systems, another impossible choice confronted me. The SD card from Liam's pendant contained definitive evidence that would almost certainly guarantee criminal convictions for him, Alessandra, and Vincent Blackmore. I had already provided a copy to the SEC, but kept the original as insurance. Now, that evidence represented both protection and vulnerability. As long as I held it, I maintained leverage against further attacks from Blackmore's team. But it also kept me tethered to the past, to the betrayal, to Liam. The morning of the Alara meeting, I made my decision. I duplicated the evidence one final time, placing copies in secure locations with instructions for their use if anything happened to me. Then I took the original SD card and dropped it into the bay as I crossed the bridge to Alara's headquarters. I watched it disappear beneath the surface, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. The evidence would still serve justice, but I would no longer be its keeper. I was choosing to build rather than destroy. Alara Systems occupied the top floors of a gleaming tower overlooking San Francisco Bay. As the elevator climbed, my stomach knotted with anxiety. This wasn't just a business pitch, it was my last chance at professional redemption. Ryan met me in the lobby, looking both nervous and hopeful. "They've allocated 30 minutes, he warned. "Make every second count." The boardroom contained 5 people, Alara's CEO Catherine Chen, their chief technology officer, 2 senior engineers, and their legal counsel. Their expressions revealed nothing as Ryan introduced me. "Thank you for meeting with me," I began, connecting my laptop to their presentation system. "Before I show you what I've developed, I want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm the person from the Nexus communications scandal. Yes, there's ongoing litigation about the intellectual property Liam Hargrove stole from me." Catherine Chen's eyebrow raised slightly. Bold opening. "I believe in transparency," I continued. "The algorithm at the heart of Nexus was my creation. But what I'm presenting today isn't simply that algorithm repurposed. It's an entirely new implementation built from first principles, one that opens possibilities Nexus never considered. For the next 20 minutes, I demonstrated the prototype, showing how it learned and adapted through natural conversation, how it retained and built upon each interaction to evolve its understanding. Unlike Nexus's narrow business communication focus, this system could potentially transform any domain requiring adaptive human-AI collaboration. When I finished, silence filled the room. The CTO leaned forward, breaking the tension. "This is impressive work, especially given your recent circumstances. But the legal complications concern us. Blackmore Ventures is notorious for aggressive litigation." "I understand the risk," I acknowledged. "But consider this, Nexus promised capabilities it couldn't deliver. My system demonstrates capabilities beyond what Nexus even attempted. The market opportunity isn't just in building something better than Nexus, it's in creating something Nexus never imagined." Catherine Shin studied me thoughtfully. "Ms. Vaughn, your technical capabilities are evident. But given recent events, I have to ask, what's preventing the same scenario from repeating itself? How do we know you won't be caught in another personal entanglement that compromises this work?" The question hit like a physical blow. They weren't just evaluating my algorithm, they were evaluating me, my judgment, my reliability. I took a deep breath. 6 months ago, I would have answered that question by promising that I'd learned my lesson, that I'd never trust the wrong person again. But that would be missing the point. I straightened my shoulders, meeting Catherine's gaze directly. The truth is, I didn't fail because I trusted Liam. I failed because I stopped trusting myself. I compromised my vision to support his. I narrowed my ambitions to fit his framework. I allowed my work, and myself, to be diminished. I gestured to the demonstration still visible on their screen. This represents more than technical innovation. It represents my reclamation of the innovative spirit I nearly lost. The real guarantee against history repeating itself isn't that I'll never trust again, it's that I'll never again surrender my vision to someone else's limitations. The room remained silent as Catherine exchanged glances with her team. Finally, she stood. "We need to discuss this privately. Ryan will show you to our waiting area." The next 45 minutes were some of the longest of my life. I sat in Alara's sleek waiting room, staring at the bay where I'd dropped the SD card, wondering if I'd just delivered an impassioned speech that would ultimately lead nowhere. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Ryan who appeared, but Catherine herself. "Walk with me," she said simply. We rode the elevator to the rooftop garden, a lush oasis 30 stories above the city. Catherine led me to a bench overlooking the panoramic view. 8 years ago, I was in a position not unlike yours, she said without preamble. My technology, early work in predictive analytics, was appropriated by my then business partner. He got the funding, the press, the glory. I got nothing except a brutal lesson in business politics. She turned to face me directly. "The difference is, I didn't fight back the way you did." I slunk away, started over quietly, built Alara from nothing while he flew private jets and graced magazine covers. "What happened to him?" I asked. A small smile touched her lips. "His company collapsed within 2 years. The technology didn't work properly without my ongoing development. He didn't understand it well enough to maintain it. And now? Now I run one of the most respected AI development firms in the country, while he teaches intro to business at a community college." She shrugged. "Justice comes in unexpected forms sometimes." Hope flickered within me. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying I understand exactly where you are right now. That moment when you have to decide whether to remain defined by what was taken from you, or to define yourself by what you'll create next." She extended her hand. "Alara would like to offer you a development partnership. We provide the infrastructure, legal protection, and development support. You bring your algorithm and vision. Equal partnership, with full intellectual property recognition." My breath caught. Even with the Blackmore legal complications? Catherine's expression hardened. "Especially with the Blackmore complications. Vincent has tried to acquire Alara twice. Both times, I've refused. This partnership isn't just about your technology, It's about drawing a line against predatory practices in our industry. The choice before me crystallized with perfect clarity. I could continue fighting the past battle alone, with diminishing resources and fading public interest. Or I could join forces with someone who understood my journey intimately, building something new while supported by the resources necessary to withstand Blackmore's inevitable attacks. There's one condition, I said carefully. Catherine waited expectantly. Daniel Harris, a developer who helped me refine this prototype and who was also pushed aside by Liam, needs to be part of this. He deserves recognition too. Catherine nodded without hesitation. We have room for talent with integrity. Anyone else? I thought of Carmen, who had risked her career to help me. Possibly. Let me discuss it with her first. Fair enough. Catherine stood, offering her hand again. So, Ms. Vaughn. Do we have a partnership? As I took her hand, I felt the weight of the past 6 months, the betrayal, the loss, the vindication, and the devastation that followed, begin to lift. Not disappearing completely, but transforming into something I could carry forward as wisdom rather than burden. We have a partnership, I confirmed. And please, call me Deanna. As we walked back toward the elevator, Catherine glanced at me. You know Blackmore will come after this technology once they realize what we're building. Let them, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. This time, I'm not fighting alone. And this time, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. For the first time in months, I felt something that had been missing since the day I discovered Liam's betrayal, not just determination or anger, but genuine hope. Not naive hope built on someone else's promises, but grounded hope rooted in my own capabilities and choices. As the elevator descended, I caught my reflection in its mirrored walls. The woman looking back wasn't the trusting, self-sacrificing Deanna who had supported Liam's dreams at the expense of her own. Nor was she the vengeful, devastated Deanna consumed by exposing his betrayal. This was someone new, someone forged in betrayal's fire but not defined by it. Someone who had faced the impossible choice between justice and rebirth, and found a way to pursue both. The elevator doors opened onto Alara's main floor, where Daniel waited anxiously. Well? He asked as I approached. I smiled, a real smile, perhaps my first in months. We're building something new. Together. As we followed Catherine toward what would become our development lab, I realized the truth that had eluded me throughout my darkest days. The most powerful response to betrayal isn't revenge. It's renaissance. 1 year. 365 days since I watched Liam being led away in handcuffs as my parents stood bewildered on that stage. In that time, everything had changed, and tonight would mark the final transformation. The venue for Alara's product launch was intentionally modest compared to Nexus's ill-fated spectacle, a converted industrial space in San Francisco's Innovation District, filled with thoughtfully selected journalists, ethical investors, and technology leaders known for valuing substance over hype. I stood backstage, watching the gathering crowd through a gap in the curtains. Unlike Liam's launch, there would be no champagne towers, no hollow promises, no fraudulent demonstrations. Tonight was about truth, in technology and in narrative. Nervous? Catherine asked, appearing beside me in a simple but elegant black suit that matched my own. Not about the technology, I admitted. We've tested it beyond any reasonable doubt. It works exactly as promised. But I hesitated. My parents are out there. We've reconciled, but they've never heard the full story. Not from me. After the Nexus implosion, I'd maintained professional distance in my public statements, focusing on the technical aspects of the intellectual property dispute rather than the personal betrayal. Tonight would change that. Catherine squeezed my shoulder. Your story matters. Not just for you, but for everyone who's ever been silenced, sidelined, or stolen from. Tell it your way. As she walked away to make final preparations, my phone vibrated with a text from Carmen, who had joined Alara as our communications director 6 months earlier. Front row, right side. They're here. I peered through the curtain again, spotting my parents seated exactly where Carmen had indicated. They looked nervous but proud, a dramatic change from the confusion and disappointment that had marked our interactions after Liam's arrest. Behind them sat Daniel, now my equal partner in what we'd built at Alara. Beside him was Ryan, whose legal brilliance had helped navigate the complex waters of launching a new technology while the Nexus case still wound through the courts. My team. My true partners. People who elevated rather than exploited my work. The house lights dimmed as Catherine took the stage to enthusiastic applause. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began. "At Alara, we believe technology should serve humanity's highest aspirations, not just our commercial interests. What you'll see tonight represents not just technical innovation, but a new ethical framework for how we develop and deploy adaptive systems." She paused, surveying the room. "But before we reveal the technology, I want to address something that many of you are wondering about. Yes, this project emerged from the ashes of the Nexus communications scandal. And yes, its chief architect is Deanna Vaughn, the woman whose work was at the heart of that controversy." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Catherine continued, her voice unwavering. "Rather than allowing others to control that narrative, tonight we're giving Deanna the platform to share her story directly, in her own words. Because innovation isn't just about technology, it's about truth. And sometimes, truth is the most disruptive force of all." She extended her hand toward the side of the stage. "Please welcome Deanna Vaughn, Chief Innovation Officer of Alara Systems and the creator of what we're unveiling tonight, Phoenix Framework." Heart pounding, I walked onto the stage, the spotlight momentarily blinding me. As my eyes adjusted, I saw my parents' faces, my father's encouraging nod, my mother's tearful smile. Taking a deep breath, I faced the audience. 18 months ago, I stood backstage at another launch event, one I helped build but wasn't invited to attend. I watched the man I'd supported for 5 years announce our engagement without ever proposing to me. I listened as he claimed sole credit for technology we'd built together in our apartment, on whiteboards I'd bought, fueled by food I'd paid for while he pursued our shared dream. The room was absolutely silent. You know the headlines that followed. The SEC investigation. The fraud charges. The spectacular implosion of what would have been a $50 million investment based on stolen work and falsified demonstrations. I paused, letting the gravity of those facts settle. What you don't know is what came before. The 5 years I spent believing in a partnership that existed only in my mind. The credit cards I maxed out funding prototypes. The career opportunities one declined to support his ambitions. The nights I spent debugging code while he slept, preparing presentations while he networked, building the very foundation he would later claim as solely his creation. I glanced at my parents, seeing understanding dawn in their expressions. When I discovered the truth, that I had been systematically erased from my own work, that my contributions had been deliberately obscured, that my partner had been planning to use marriage as a legal mechanism to claim ownership of my intellectual property, I had a choice. Walking to the center of the stage, I continued, I could fight solely to reclaim what was taken, or I could build something new, something better than what had been stolen. The technology we're revealing tonight represents my answer to that question. I gestured to the screen behind me, which illuminated with the Phoenix Framework logo, a stylized phoenix rising from lines of code. Phoenix isn't just a name, it's a philosophy. The belief that from destruction can come creation. That what emerges from the ashes can transcend what came before. For the next 20 minutes, I demonstrated the system Daniel and I had built with Alara's support, an adaptive learning framework that evolved through natural human interaction, applicable across healthcare, education, creative collaboration, and scientific research. Where Nexus had promised but failed to deliver a narrow business communication tool, Phoenix offered a transformative approach to human-AI collaboration across multiple domains. As the demonstration concluded, applause filled the room, not the forced enthusiasm of investors hoping for quick returns, but the genuine appreciation of people who recognized authentic innovation. But technology alone isn't why we're here tonight, I continued as the applause faded. We're here because of a larger truth that needs acknowledgement. Silicon Valley has a theft problem. The room grew tense. This was the moment Carmen had warned might alienate some in the audience, the direct confrontation of the industry's darkest patterns. Not just intellectual property theft, though that's rampant, I clarified. But the theft of credit, of opportunity, of voice, particularly from women, people of color, and those without powerful networks to protect them. Scanning the room, I saw uncomfortable shifts among some executives, but nodding agreement from many others, particularly women. The story of my algorithm being stolen isn't unique. What's unusual is that I fought back publicly and survived to build again. For every story like mine that makes headlines, dozens, hundreds, go untold. Innovations buried. Careers derailed. Contributions erased. I took a steadying breath before delivering the most personal part of my address. The hardest lesson I've learned isn't about technology or legal protections or even business partnerships. It's about the difference between supporting someone's dream and surrendering your own. Between sacrifice that builds mutual success and sacrifice that enables exploitation. My gaze found my parents again, seeing tears streaming down my mother's face as she nodded in understanding. For 5 years, I believed I was building a shared future with someone who saw me as a resource to be mined and discarded. I dimmed my own ambitions to illuminate his. I narrowed my vision to fit within his frame. I allowed my creation to be constrained by his commercial aspirations. The emotion in my voice was raw, unfiltered. And when he no longer needed what I provided, the technical solutions, the emotional support, the financial stability, I was erased from the narrative. Replaced by someone who better fit the image he wanted to project to the world. I paused, gathering strength for what came next. 3 months ago, Liam Hargrove pleaded guilty to securities fraud, wire fraud, and intellectual property theft. He's currently serving a 4-year sentence. Vincent Blackmore awaits trial on more extensive charges related to multiple technology acquisitions. Alessandra Blackmore received immunity in exchange for testimony exposing the broader pattern of predatory acquisition practices. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was new information. The plea deal had been finalized under sealed terms that hadn't yet been made public. But Phoenix isn't about their downfall. It's about what rises after destruction. It's about the technology that can emerge when innovation isn't constrained by predatory business models or toxic partnerships. I gestured to Daniel, who stood to acknowledge the audience's applause. Phoenix Framework was built by a true partnership, one where all contributors are acknowledged, where sacrifice is mutual, where success is shared. It represents not just technical evolution, but ethical evolution in how we build and credit innovation. Turning back to the audience, I delivered the final, most powerful revelation. 2 days ago, the court issued its final ruling on the intellectual property dispute at the heart of the Nexus case. The decision awards me full ownership of the original algorithm, nullifies all patent applications filed by Nexus Communications, and establishes my right to develop new applications based on that foundational technology. The room erupted in applause, led, I noticed with a surge of emotion, by my father, who had risen to his feet. But the most meaningful victory isn't the legal one, I continued as the applause subsided. It's standing here tonight, presenting technology that fulfills the promise of what I originally created, technology unbounded by someone else's limited vision or commercial constraints. I moved to the demonstration console, initiating the system's final showcase. What you're about to see isn't just an adaptive learning framework. It's living proof that when we refuse to be erased, when we reclaim our voice and vision, what we create can transcend what was stolen from us. For the next 10 minutes, I guided the audience through Phoenix's capabilities, demonstrating how it evolved through natural conversation, how it built understanding across domains, how it enabled new forms of collaborative problem-solving between humans and AI systems. When I concluded the demonstration, the response was immediate and overwhelming, a standing ovation that continued for several minutes, led by Catherine, my parents, and the team that had helped build Phoenix from the ruins of Nexus. As the applause finally quieted, I delivered my closing thoughts. Phoenix isn't just technology. It's a promise, to ourselves and to each other. A promise that we will no longer accept erasure. That we will no longer surrender our visions to accommodate someone else's limitations. That we will no longer sacrifice our futures on the altar of partnerships that demand everything from one side and nothing from the other. I looked directly at the young women in the audience, the developers, designers, and entrepreneurs at the beginnings of their careers. Your ideas matter. Your contributions deserve recognition. Your voice belongs in the narrative of what you help build. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. As I stepped back from the microphone, Catherine joined me on stage, along with Daniel and the rest of our development team. As we stood together, true partners in the success we'd built, I caught my mother's eye in the front row. She mouthed 3 words that meant more than any technical achievement or legal victory. I see you. In that moment, standing in the spotlight I'd earned through my own creation rather than through supporting someone else's, I finally felt the weight of Liam's betrayal fully lift from my shoulders. Not because I'd forgotten or forgiven, but because I'd transformed it into something infinitely more valuable than revenge. I had reclaimed not just my work, but myself. 2 years to the day after Liam's arrest, I stood at the window of my new office, watching the San Francisco fog roll in across the bay. The view was breathtaking, 30 stories up in what was now officially Alara Tower, with the company name illuminated across the top in understated blue letters. Phoenix Framework had transformed from promising startup to industry-leading technology in 18 months, with implementation across healthcare, education, and scientific research. The adaptive learning system Daniel and I had built from the ashes of betrayal now helped doctors diagnose rare conditions, enabled personalized education for students with diverse learning needs, and accelerated breakthrough research in climate science. A light knock on my open door pulled me from my thoughts. Catherine entered, holding 2 champagne glasses. Celebrating something? I asked, accepting one. Several things, actually, she replied. The Mercer Foundation just signed on to implement Phoenix across their entire hospital network. That's 18 major medical centers. I smiled. That's the 3rd major healthcare system this quarter. And, Catherine continued, the court officially denied Vincent Blackmore's final appeal. His 7-year sentence stands. The news brought a complex wave of emotions, not triumph exactly, but a sense of completion. Justice had been methodical rather than swift, but it had finally arrived. How do you feel about that? Catherine asked, studying my expression. I considered the question carefully. Relieved, mostly. Not because of what happens to him, but because it truly ends a chapter. No more legal battles. No more looking over our shoulder. And Liam? The name no longer triggered pain or anger, just a distant recognition of a person who had once occupied central importance in my life but now existed on the periphery. According to Carmen's sources, he's being released to a halfway house next month after serving 2 years of his 4-year sentence, I said. Apparently he's been teaching coding to other inmates. Catherine raised an eyebrow. Does that bother you? The early release? I shook my head. What would be the point? Phoenix has surpassed anything Nexus ever promised to be. Alara's market value is 10 times what Blackmore Ventures offered for Nexus. We're implementing technology that actually helps people rather than just generating investor returns. I turned back to the window, watching boats navigate the bay. Whatever Liam does next, he'll do it in a world where everyone in tech knows exactly who he is and what he did. That's consequence enough. Catherine nodded, then raised her glass. To closing chapters and opening new ones. We clinked glasses, the delicate sound echoing in my spacious office, an office I'd designed myself, with whiteboards covering an entire wall and comfortable seating for collaborative work sessions. Not a corner office meant to intimidate, but a creative space meant to welcome collaboration. There's one more thing, Catherine said, setting down her glass. The board voted unanimously this morning. Effective immediately, you're being promoted to co-CEO. I nearly dropped my champagne. Co-CEO? With you? She smiled. Phoenix has evolved beyond its initial scope. Your vision is driving the company's future. The title should reflect the reality. The offer took my breath away. 2 years ago, I had been selling furniture to make rent, watching my career and future collapse after exposing Liam's fraud. Now, I was being offered joint leadership of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. I don't know what to say, I admitted. Say yes, Catherine replied simply. Equal partnership. Equal leadership. The way it always should have been. After a moment's thought, I nodded. Yes. But on one condition. Name it. Daniel gets elevated to Chief Innovation Officer. His contributions deserve recognition too. Catherine smiled. Already in the board resolution. Announcement goes out tomorrow morning. After she left, I remained by the window, watching the city lights begin to illuminate as dusk fell. My phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. Dinner tonight to celebrate the Mercer contract. Your parents want to take us all out. I smiled, typing back, absolutely. Add one more thing to celebrate. Tell you in person. My relationship with my parents had been completely rebuilt in the aftermath of Liam's betrayal. Once they understood the full story, how systematically I'd been erased and exploited, they became my fiercest advocates. My father had even testified during the intellectual property hearings, bringing financial records showing how I'd supported Liam throughout the years when he claimed to be working alone. As I gathered my things to leave the office, I passed the wall where we displayed Phoenix's core values, the principles that guided every business decision and technical innovation. At the top, in bold letters, was the one I'd insisted upon. Recognition for all contributors. Credit where credit is due. It wasn't just a corporate platitude, it was the hard-won wisdom of someone who had experienced the devastation of having her contributions erased. That evening, gathered around a table with my parents, Carmen, Daniel, Ryan, and Catherine, I finally shared the news of my promotion. The celebration that followed, genuine, joyful, shared, crystallized how different my life had become. A toast, my father said, raising his glass. To my daughter, who taught me that believing in yourself can be even more powerful than having others believe in you. My mother added, and who showed us all that your worst moment doesn't define you, what you build afterward does. As glasses clinked around the table, I felt a profound sense of completion. Not because the journey was over, but because it had transformed into something I never could have imagined during those dark days after Liam's betrayal. I had not just survived, I had reconstructed my entire existence on a foundation of my own making. After dinner, as we walked along the Embarcadero, Carmen linked her arm through mine. You know, she said thoughtfully, when all this started, I was just trying to help my friend get justice. I never imagined where it would lead. For either of us, I agreed. Carmen's strategic guidance of Phoenix's communications had established her as one of the most respected voices in tech PR. She'd recently been featured in Forbes' 40 Under 40 list. Do you ever think about writing it all down? She asked. Your story, I mean. There are so many women in tech who need to hear it. The idea had crossed my mind, particularly as I was increasingly invited to speak at conferences and universities. The narrative of rising from betrayal to build something greater resonated deeply across industries. Maybe someday, I said. But right now, I'm more interested in writing the next chapter than revisiting the previous ones. Carmen nodded understanding. Fair enough. Speaking of next chapters, any progress with that educational neuroscience application you've been working on? I smiled. The new project had consumed my nights and weekends for months, an adaptation of Phoenix specifically designed to help children with learning differences. Early testing is promising, I said. We're seeing cognitive improvements in 87% of participants. That's incredible, Deanna. From business communication app to potentially transforming how children learn, all because you refuse to stay within the boundaries someone else set for your work. Her observation struck me as profoundly true. Phoenix had flourished precisely because it wasn't constrained by Liam's narrower vision for the technology. What he had seen as merely a tool for streamlining corporate communications had evolved, in my hands, into something that could transform how humans learn, heal, and discover. The painful irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to steal my creation, Liam had actually prevented it from reaching its full potential. Only when I reclaimed both the algorithm and my independent vision could it truly transform into what it was meant to be. 3 days later, I received an unexpected email that brought this truth into even sharper focus. The subject line read simply, "Congratulations." The sender, Liam Hargrove. My finger hovered over delete, but curiosity won out. I opened it. Deanna. I'm writing this from the prison library computer lab with limited time, so I'll be direct. I've been following Phoenix's development through whatever tech news I can access. What you've built is extraordinary, far beyond anything I envisioned for the technology. That's the bitter truth I've had to face and hear. Even if I had succeeded in taking full credit for your algorithm, I would have failed to recognize its true potential. My vision was too small. Yours wasn't. This isn't an apology, nothing could adequately address what I did. It's simply an acknowledgement of something I've come to understand during the past 2 years. The greatest theft wasn't the algorithm itself, but the constraints I tried to place on your brilliance. Liam. I read the email 3 times, searching for manipulation or hidden agenda, but found none. Just a simple, painful truth from someone who had finally recognized the full extent of what he had attempted to steal, not just code or credit, but possibility itself. I didn't reply. Some chapters deserve to remain closed. Instead, I forwarded the Phoenix Educational Neuroscience research to Catherine with a note, ready to present to the board next week. This could help millions of children. That evening, I stopped by my parents' house for dinner, a weekly tradition we'd established during the reconciliation process. As my mother set the table, she asked about the latest developments at Alera. Rather than just giving updates, I found myself sharing deeper reflections on the journey from betrayal to rebirth. The strangest part, I told them as we sat around the familiar kitchen table, is realizing that if Liam had never betrayed me, if we'd stayed together, if Nexus had launched as planned with me in the background, Phoenix would never have existed in its current form. My vision would have remained constrained by his expectations. My father considered this. So in a way, his betrayal freed you. Not immediately, I clarified. First it nearly destroyed me. But yes, eventually it forced me to rebuild according to my own blueprint rather than someone else's. My mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I'm sorry we didn't see what was happening at the time. That we didn't understand the difference between supporting someone's dream and surrendering your own. I didn't understand it either, I admitted. Not until I had no choice but to figure it out. As we finished dinner, my father brought out a small gift box. We were going to save this for your birthday next month, but tonight seems right. Inside was a delicate silver pendant, not unlike the one Liam had given me years ago, the one that had concealed evidence of his betrayal. But this one held something different, a tiny phoenix crafted in platinum and rose gold. To remind you, my mother said softly, that sometimes the most beautiful transformations emerge from the hottest fires. As she fastened it around my neck, I felt the weight of the pendant, subtle but present, like the experience that had forged my new life. Not a burden anymore, but a foundation. Not a painful memory, but a powerful reminder. Later that night, standing on the balcony of my new home overlooking the city, I touched the phoenix pendant and reflected on the complete circle of my journey. From the woman who had sacrificed everything to support someone else's dream to the co-CEO building technology that transformed lives. From the partner erased from her own creation to the leader ensuring every contributor received recognition. The transformation hadn't been easy or straightforward. It had required facing the darkest truths about betrayal, about partnership, about the difference between supporting and surrendering. It had demanded reconstruction from the ground up, not just of my career, but of my understanding of my own worth. Hey everyone, I hope this story has resonated with you. Whether you're watching from your home, during a commute, or taking a break at work, I wanted to share this journey because so many of us face moments where we must choose between fighting for recognition or building something new from the ashes of disappointment. If any part of this story felt familiar, the self-doubt, the erasure, the struggle to reclaim your voice, know that you're not alone. The hardest lesson I learned wasn't about technology or business, but about the courage required to define yourself by what you create rather than what was taken from you. If you found value in this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more narratives that explore resilience in the face of betrayal. Share in the comments if you've experienced similar challenges or transformations in your own life. Your story matters too. The truth is, every one of us has phoenix potential, the capacity to emerge from devastation stronger and more authentically ourselves than before. The path through the fire is excruciating, but what awaits on the other side is a life built on your terms, according to your vision, reflecting your true capabilities. And that, more than any revenge, any vindication, any justice, is the most powerful response to betrayal, becoming exactly who you were meant to be, unconstrained by someone else's limitations. Sometimes, the greatest achievement isn't fighting to reclaim what was stolen. It's building something they never could have imagined.